some storytellers that were incels. I mean, the original incels come from history. This guy, massive incel. This guy, even bigger incel. What the fuck? Did you like the story that I was telling in the beginning of the video? I was actually speaking an ancient language. Could you tell what I was saying? If you could, comment down below. You may be of the Neolithic Stone Age like myself. I have the forehead of an Australopithecus. We as a species have been speaking and writing for a very long time, and as time goes on, our language continues to evolve and adapt.
The first piece of fossil evidence that can be used to reconstruct hominin vocalization comes from the skeleton of a juvenile Australopithecus afarensis dated to 3.3 million years ago.
Some languages disappear altogether. Most people also vastly undervalue the importance of storytelling. For a long time, that's just how we remembered shit. That's why there's so many stories that are just straight up lies, because they were story told. They're the victims of story tolding. And that's important for today's video because we're going to be discussing the original incels. And I really like this idea for a video. I think it's a cool idea for a video, but there's a little bit of history we need to go through first. When early humans moved into caves to take shelter, they began to paint what they saw in nature on the walls of the caves. Things like this and doggy style. I mean, that's cool as fuck. The earliest known cave paintings are from a cave on the island of Sulawesi in Indonesia. This cave was already well known for cave paintings, as in 2017, a spelunker and archaeologist named Homrala stumbled upon an opening into an uncharted chamber deep within the cave. Upon entering, he found cave drawings of at least 8 Anoas, aka dwarf buffaloes native to Sulawesi. These bitches was painted on the wall. Accompanying these drawings of these ancient creatures were drawings of human hands, and these stood as the oldest known cave paintings, dating back to at least 43,000 years ago, and were called the oldest pictorial record of storytelling and the earliest figurative artwork in the world. Interesting. Very, very, very interesting. All from modern day Ohio. Just kidding, it's not from modern day Ohio. Crack a Dr. Pepper with me right here for this one, boys. It's gonna be a fun one. All right, we're gonna be learning about incels. Yeah, like the internet meme, but also not really, but also definitely. Go to sour.gg and buy some incel candy. It'll help you get laid. Just kidding, it won't. It won't. But it's really delicious and we release a new flavor every single week. Go to sour.gg. That same year, another set of cave drawings depicting pigs was discovered and dated to be 2,000 years older than the dwarf buffalo drawings, and also the epic hands. These are very simple, but they offer us a good insight into the lives of the people who made them. For starters, the drawings of these animals helped archaeologists date these animals to at least as far back as the drawings. It also showed that these early hominids were hunting and watching the animals like this. I'm just learning your anatomy and touching myself. The handprints, on the other hand, were more than likely created by dumbass children and young adults seeing their parents and elders painting animals on the walls. We actually know that it was dumbass children due to the numerous studies conducted looking at ancient footprints left at the base of the walls. You can also measure the biometrics of the hands to see their size and shape and correlate that back to age. These are some small hands. In Tibet, researchers discovered 169,000 to 226,000-year-old hand and footprints left by 2 hominid children on a travertine boulder. These impressions could represent the world's oldest known cave art, potentially, and that is according to a study in Science Bulletin, my favorite tabloid. Using uranium series dating, researchers determined that the deliberate placement of these prints near hot spring suggests a creative or symbolic act rather than accidental marking, and that finding prompts questions about early humans' capacity for art and symbolic thought, aka the beginning of incels, the beginning of thinking too much, the beginning of being weird. So we skip past hand and foot markings and cave paintings and we go right down to signs. All right, guys. Language, receipts. Some of the earliest known writings of human beings in general are just receipts. A caravan. What's the caravan carrying? Let's write it on a massive stone tablet, okay? One of the earliest known examples of a receipt came from the Minoans on the island of Crete. The Minoans were a seafaring society that lasted from 3000 BC to about 1100 BC. They suck. Their ships were ugly and they all were weird. All right, they were all weird. This society, though, was very advanced and culturally sophisticated, and one of its great achievements was its language, which is directly conflicting with what I just said before. Linear A was the undeciphered script of the Minoan civilization on Crete from around 1850 to 1450 BC, primarily used for administrative purposes. The script consists of at least 90 symbols, including syllabic signs, ideograms, and numeric markers. Its resemblance to an earlier Cretan hieroglyphic script suggests continuity in Minoan writing. Although Linear A evolved into a linear format with abstracted characters, which I know exactly what I'm talking about right now, so sit down and listen. I promise it's all gonna make sense. I promise it's gonna come together. Linear A is found on clay tablets, roundels, and stoppers, which likely recorded trade transactions, personnel details, and possibly tax or storage information. Basically, Fed shit. All right, bureaucracy nonsense. Beyond that, Linear A appeared on religious objects like votive offerings and large storage jars, which could hint to additional uses in religious or symbolic contexts. The spread of Linear A across the Mediterranean found on the islands like Rhodes and Thera attest to Minoan trade networks, while Linear A influenced the Linear B script used by the Mycenaeans. Its exact language remains unknown, and it is yet to be deciphered, leaving significant aspects of the Minoan record-keeping and cultural practices a mystery. On top of this more interesting and emotive first written language, you've also got shit from Mesopotamia, the Akkadians, Egyptian hieroglyphs, and the oldest Sumerian. Okay, this is just one of the examples here, Linear A. I thought it was a cool example. The beginning of incels. After a really long time, people got tired of writing on rocks, and eventually they invented paper-like materials and scrolls, papyrus, and books, and they would become the standard. Then, in the 1400s, Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing press, and from there, the age of mass information was born. No longer did scribes have to tirelessly work to copy books when a machine could just make one with ease. So that's sort of the beginning of human communication, human relation, human symbolism, and human stuff. And then we skip to today. We have the internet, we have AI. All the information you could ever want or need is right at your fingertips. If you need to figure out anything, it exists already and someone has done it before you. And you can follow in their footsteps. And you can watch a YouTube video, literally following in their footsteps.
Hey guys, Chris Fix here, and today I'm gonna show you how to super clean your engine bay.
Every video is a vessel of information, like a cave drawing, like those little stupid, terrible arts on the wall. It's just more modern. So we've established some consistency, okay? People wanna, learn stuff, do stuff, whatever, to fit in and all that stuff. We've also got consistency of bizarreness. I'm sure that you have heard of bards and minstrels. Both of these jobs were jobs to entertain and tell stories to anyone who would listen, and to specifically royalty in most cases, because a lot of people just weren't shit. Let's be real, and only royalty could afford a bard. We'll get to the incel shit, okay? But I bet you didn't know the origins of the two positions, the minstrel and the bard. The bard originated from Celtic cultures. Or sorry. I'm Ronnie Drew.
One woman put them all to shame. Just one was worthy of the name.
A bard. I don't know. They're from the Anglo area, that area over there. It was someone who worked for a lord and provided them with entertainment without having to pull their boobies out, then play the little guitar. I would have been a bard for sure. I would have been a little bard guy or something. Bards would also tell stories of the lord's ancestors, probably lie a lot and make shit up, and they would tell stories of the lord's accomplishments to bolster the lord's notoriety. The main form of entertainment supplied by bards was a type of poetry called elegies, or an elegy. An elegy is a type of poem centered on mourning or lamentation, often for someone or something lost, like Ragnar the Red.
An elegy is a poem, and it has a particular kind of emotion driving it. That emotion is lament, meaning to feel and express sorrow, and to mourn for something.
Unlike a eulogy, which praises the deceased life, an elegy focuses on the poet's sorrow and feelings of loss, using metaphor to convey grief. It's very sad. It's a bard's life. You know, the life of the elegist. I made that up. I don't know if that's how you say that. I don't know a lot about elegies. I read the book Hillbilly Elegy back when it first came out from the now Vice President of the United States of America, J.D. Vance. And honestly, it was all right. It was pretty good. It seemed a little weird and out of touch, but I liked it. I didn't mind. Elegy, makes sense. Anyways, a notable example of a bard elegy would be John Milton's 17th century poem, Lycidas, which not only mourns a friend's death, but also delves into the depth and implications of that sorrow, establishing a tradition and still influences contemporary elegies to today.
It's about being two young friends in Cambridge wanting to be poets, and one of them dying. And his friend dies, and Milton has a bit in the middle. He says, why do I bother? Why am I going on? What's it for?
It's going to influence my elegy when I die tragically. You guys excited for me to die tragically? Let's get a comment down below. Let's get a like on that button down there. Being a bard is no longer a job anymore, but the legacy of bards still live on. Obviously, the most popular portrayal, I already mentioned it, Skyrim, Ragnar the Red.
This is a local favorite and one of the first songs I ever learned. Ragnar the Red. Oh, there once was a hero named Ragnar the Red who came riding to Whiterun from old Rorikstead.
You can travel around to local taverns and have bards sing for you and regale stories of old. You can also play as a bard in D&D and other role-playing games. Like I have a bard in my group in Baldur's Gate 3. Sometimes I like making him sleep naked though. He gets naked and he just has his dick out. It's really weird how you can do that in that game. It's weird. Also that bitch, whatever the f her name is, she doesn't wear clothes in my game. Don't tell Christina. Don't tell Christina. All right, don't tell Christina. Actually, I haven't played Baldur's Gate since she moved down here, so yeah. Now, if we go from Europe to China, keep up, okay? Trust me, we'll get there, all right? These bard-type people don't have specific titles for storytellers, but an art form was called pingshu. Pingshu is a traditional Chinese storytelling art. It originated during the Song Dynasty, which ran from the 1960s to the 1279s, the 960s, not the 1960s. And it took its more familiar form in the Ming Dynasty, which was the 1300s, and the Qing Dynasty, which was the 1600s to the 1900s, all the way. It was long. Pingshu, rooted in oral storytelling traditions, was initially performed in tea houses, public squares, and streets, where stories and opera pieces were shared with audiences.
听天津快板儿，得加上点音乐，嘿，那是最正宗了。是当当当当当当当当当当当当当当，哎，竹板这么一打。
But as pingshu evolved, it incorporated literary elements from Chinese history, folklore, and operas, which added depth and variety to its narratives. They started making shit up, is what happened. Performers became known for their improvisational skills, enhancing the original stories with humor, suspense, commentary, and unique plot twists. They created a customized experience for each audience. They were the first liars, the first comedians, the first storytellers. This is really interesting for China, you know? Typically, when a pingshu is performed, the person who is performing usually wears some type of gown and holds different things that either make noise, quiet the audience, or simulate nature. Very much like Carrot Top in the modern day. Carrot Top is a pingshu expert. This type of storytelling is awesome, and it's very engaging for the audience, and is part of the reason why pingshu remained popular for such a long time and still remains popular to this day. A lesser known storytelling tradition comes from the Kurdish people, similarly to bards and minstrels of Europe. Dangbaj, it's a traditional Kurdish folk singer and storyteller known for performing strain or songs of mourning, as well as epics of love, war, and heroism. The term dangbaj comes from the Kurdish word dang, which is voice, and baj, which is to sing. I don't know if that's how you say it. I'm just gonna make shit up. Pretend like I'm saying it right, you know what I'm saying? Dangbaj has roots going back 5,000 years in the Middle East, and Dangbaj played an essential role in preserving Kurdish oral culture, especially before the development of written Kurdish language, which didn't come for a while. Historically, Dangbaj memorized thousands of songs, stories, and legends, acting as living archives of Kurdish history, culture, and identity. Through generations, these people preserved Kurdish identity and nationalism, particularly as Kurdish culture faced repression and assimilation efforts. Traditionally, though, unaccompanied by musical instruments, Dangbaj emphasize voice, memory, and improvisation, and are seen as historians and keepers of the original Kurdish heritage. It's just pretty impressive stuff. Like, look at this. Now, the art of storytelling takes many forms around the globe, but some storytellers are more notorious than others. And let me tell you guys, there were some fucking weird dudes. For some reason, many famous storytellers were extremely similar to modern day incels. When we started doing a little bit of research on this, we're like, how can we make this an interesting video that people on the internet are gonna like? Well, hey, I don't know. I don't have any idea. I just wanna be somewhat valuable, some kind of historical, value to the video, some kind of real factual value, and then bring up incels and shit on them. That'll be fun. Let's do that. There's some storytellers that were incels. I mean, the original incels come from history. This guy, massive incel. This guy, even bigger incel. What the fuck? One of the earliest examples of an incel comes from the Han Dynasty. Sima Qian was a Chinese historian who lived from 145 BC to 86 BC. And like his father, Sima Qian worked as the grand historian for the emperor. He was a historian. That's pretty cool. His father had started to work on a complete history of China, which was a daunting task. Obviously, it's the complete history of a country. And eventually it was passed on to him, the son of the man who started it. Sima would honor his father and finish the records of the Grand Historian Project around 94 BC at the age of 41. He and his father are considered to be some of the best historians and storytellers in China. But a few years before the completion of his father's work, his life would take a massive turn, leading him to becoming the first incel. In 98 BC, two generals, Li Ling and Li Guanli, led a military campaign in North China against the Zhonghu, a group of nomadic peoples who mostly lived in steppe country. They ultimately lost, and the campaign failure was blamed on Li Ling. Everyone in the emperor's court was in agreement that the emperor was at fault, except for Sima Qian, who defended his actions despite not being friends with him at all. Weird behavior. Emperor Wu of Han took this as Sima blaming Ling Guanli, the emperor's brother-in-law, for the campaign's failure and charged him with the capital offense of prevarication and deceit. The punishment for this offense was death, but could be voided if you paid the state a certain amount of money or you were castrated. Now, that's interesting. A couple problems with this already. We've got a couple problems with this. Very problematic culture, it seems like, ancient China. You get charged with a crime that's nonsensical in and of itself. It's like, I don't know. You're an enemy of the state, I guess. But you can get out of it if you let me chop your balls off or give me $500. Huh? Chinese reaction emoji. To save his family name, this genius, this incel, chose castration. And after 3 years in prison, his gonads were chopped, diced, chopped, served to the emperor. I made that last part out. Following this, his whole perspective on life changed, and we can read about it in his letters to someone named Ren An. We don't know who exactly this person is, but based on how open and emotional he is in his letters, he clearly has had a long-standing relationship with this person. I think this was the first OnlyFans model. It was a one-sided relationship. I'm just kidding. I don't think that person from history wasn't the first OnlyFans model. It's insane. The one thing we do know about Ren is that they too were sentenced to death. So maybe he felt that he could be vulnerable to their similar circumstances due to their similar circumstances. I'm not sure. But the letter reveals Sima Qian's intense internal conflict shaped by societal and personal pressures, his dedication to integrity and legacy, and his experience of public disgrace. Sima Qian found himself an outcast, grappling with the humiliation of his condition, and the punishment was seen as the most degrading in Han China, impacting both his self-perception and social relationships. He expressed profound feelings of shame, especially over how his punishment shamed his ancestors, and he got his ballsack chopped off. Sima Qian had a choice: dishonor your family name and die leaving your father's work unfinished, or cut your balls off and get no play for the rest of your life. Incel motherfucker. He chose the latter and isolated himself so he could focus on his work. In a way, he was voluntarily celibate, but also had no balls. But nevertheless, he is one of the many storytellers throughout history that had incel qualities and tendencies. Someone who sacrificed sex for plethora of different reasons. I don't know if the incels of nowadays are actually, maybe this guy's not a very good example. Maybe he's not that good of an example, but he was a incel, let's be real. I'm just kidding, he was a legend. Next fella we're looking at is a bit more of a goober. His name is Ovid, the poet. He was born in 43 BC and died in 17 CE. Ovid spent his entire life writing poetry about love and women. If you don't believe me, motherfucker, here are some of his most famous works. I mean, this guy had a fascination. Let's be thankful OnlyFans wasn't a thing back then. He'd been subbed out of his mind, bro. $29.99 a month, $13.99 a month, in DMs all day long, just sending money, whoop, 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 sending shekels or whatever the kind of money he had, francs, I don't know, denarius, drachme, I don't know what the kind of money this some bitch had. Ovid, what kind of name is that? Sounds like a spice. Now, with a list of love tales like this, you'd think this guy is a professional, like the Andrew Tate of the Roman world. This guy had really strong opinions on women and how men should be, and sells his brand and identity through the informational medium. This guy is basically, once again, the Andrew Tate of the Roman world. An example of some strangeness comes from The Art of Love. He provides a guide to romantic conquest for all, treating love as a strategic pursuit and liking it to a hunt. He presents women as both objects of pursuit and active participants capable of using charm, flattery, and deception to maintain allure. Ovid's views of relationship balance genuine passion with social performance, emphasizing the importance of appearance and wit. In Remedia Amoris, Ovid offered practical advice on overcoming heartbreak and advocating for balanced self-control and emotional distance. This guy was literally a self-help guru. He was the Andrew Tate of the time. He did have a bit more of a nuanced perspective though when compared with Andrew Tate, because Ovid emphasized that idealizing love can become problematic, and that relationships require both skill and moderation to maintain. His teachings catered largely to men, but he did acknowledge women's active role in love dynamics. I feel like a lot of incels nowadays would look at his work and agree wholeheartedly. I mean, he thinks it's a hunt. The fact that Ovid believes that finding love is like a hunt and that you have to have wit and charm to attract a mate falls right into the alpha male incel mentality. All right, guys, you gotta have wit and charm. You don't just get lucky. There's no such thing. You don't just meet somebody and then choose them. That's not what happens. You have to have wit. You have to have charm. You gotta wear the newest hat. You gotta have the newest George suit from Walmart. You gotta have the newest George suit from Walmart. 3 sizes too big. Hello? You like my new soup? No, incel, shut up, dumbass. If you look up alpha male on TikTok, you'll see exactly what the I'm talking about. In fact, you'll see a picture of Ovid right there. There are videos telling you how to walk.
You can tell straight away when a man isn't confident when they're walking around, looking at the ground, with their shoulders slumped, avoiding eye contact. Instead, next time you're walking somewhere, look straight ahead. Be more confident and follow these rules.
Talk.
How to speak like an alpha. 1. Don't say, I like it. Say it's pleasant. 2. Don't say goodbye. Say, see you.
Even going as far as to say that you don't have to accept a woman's rejection. Hence, love is just a game.
You do not have to accept her rejection.
Male constituent!
I'm a professional dating coach and I teach guys how to understand the female mind.
This guy was way ahead of his time. Not only was he one of the very first incels, he was also Andrew Tate before Andrew Tate was cool. Minus the sex trafficking and stuff, or whatever. Allegedly, I don't know. What gets even funnier about Ovid is that he was banished from the Roman Empire and he died in isolation. So his poetry and morals conflicted with Emperor Augustus' Lex Julia. The Lex Julia laws promoted marriage, family stability, and moral order amongst the Roman elite, and they encouraged marriage and childbearing, and they imposed penalties on those who remained single or childless, and enforced strict punishments for adultery, including exile and property loss. See ya, Ovid, you So the Roman values of that time were basically the polar opposite of what Ovid was preaching. Poor guy, Ovid, also terrible name. Augustus got fed up with him, banished him. He's literally the Joker. Society hated him for his genius. He's just misunderstood. Wait till you get a load of this guy, all right? If you thought that guy was bad, Ovid, this guy is the final boss of historical incels. His name is Nikolai Gogol. He's a Ukrainian storyteller and playwright born in 1809, and at the age of 19 moved to St. Petersburg to become a writer. And my God, look at this guy. I'm not surprised he thought the way he did. I think we should bring this look back, though. We need to have more people that look like this. I mean, the hair is immaculate. The mustache, immaculate. This motherfucker's hair looks greasy in an oil painting. I don't even know it was possible to have greasy hair in a painting. You slap a fedora on this guy's head and he looks like your average, I don't know, weirdo. Incel, look at him. In Gogol's first book, Evenings on a Farm Near Dikanka, which came out in the early 1800s, Gogol presented love and relationships as complex forces intertwined with the supernatural and folk tradition. Holy shit, this guy's that's romantic. I mean, what the I think at least. Love often led his characters into perilous or morally compromising situations, highlighting both its allure and potential for corruption, and relationships for him were portrayed as tests of commitment, frequently driven by romantic ideals, but tinged with vanity and unrealistic demands. This was his first book, and already his views on women and love are out there. Gogol would produce 9 more works, including short stories, plays, and some. All of them deal with very serious and sad topics like death, self-reflection, and starvation, which will kind of be a little bit more ironic later, but each one would also show readers Gogol's views on women. That's the most important part of this entire thing. In Marriage, a play written by Gogol in 1842, he satirizes love and relationships, portraying marriage as a social obligation driven by superficial motives rather than genuine affection. The protagonist, Bolkluzen, is reluctant and indecisive about marriage, while his friend Kucherov pressures him into pursuing Agatha, a young woman also uncertain about her suitors. Both Bolkluzen and Agatha view marriage pragmatically, considering external factors over personal connections, which highlights Gogol's skepticism toward the institution as hollow and insincere. Through humorous scenarios and characters fixated on trivial traits, Gogol critiques a society where relationships are more about social expectation than meaningful companionship, revealing the emptiness that can underlie marriage is formed out of obligation rather than love. Him blaming society for marriage being awful and claiming that love is an empty feeling goes, I mean, it's perfect. It's such a red-pilled based incel way to view it. It's an incel mentality on love. But wait until you hear about his magnum opus. In 1842, Gogol released a novel titled Dead Souls that critiques the lack of genuine relationships and love in a society driven by materialism and social ambition. It's weird how that's still relevant now. It's strange. Chichikov's quest for wealth through acquiring dead souls reflects a world where self-interest and status overshadow meaningful human connections. The characters he encounters embody greed, vanity, and moral decay, highlighting Gogol's skepticism and cynicism towards relationships specifically that are built on superficial foundations. This absence of sincere bonds, particularly romantic or familial, underscores Gogol's view that a society obsessed with appearances and profit leaves little room for true love or connection, which is a satirical yet bleak commentary on human nature. Very, very. It's just Andrew Tate again. Dating coaches online. Women only want you for material things and not because they love you. What? If Gogol was alive today, he'd be, well, he probably wouldn't get anywhere if he looked like that shit, but I don't know. Anyways, in an ironic twist of fate, in February of 1852, Gogol was working on part 2 of Dead Souls when he accidentally caught his manuscript on fire, and he claimed that the devil started the fire as a practical joke on him. Unable to cope, he laid down in his bed, refused to eat for 9 days, and died of starvation. It really seemed like he blamed most of his problems on external sources. He could never be held responsible for any problems in his own life, including the destruction of his precious manuscript or his failure to get into a relationship. He laid in his bed and died from starvation. Anyways, guys, humans are really awesome. Another incel, another honorable mention, less incel-y in terms of, weird, terrible ideas. Soren Kierkegaard, my favorite philosopher. I love Soren Kierkegaard. SK, my boy. What up? What up? What up, hyper-rationalists? What up? Comment down below. He was gay, I think, but also an incel, kind of. Not really. I don't know. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. See ya.